Cast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello and welcome to this webinar delivered by the ISM Trust. Before we begin, a few points. The content of this presentation is for information purposes only. It is not intended to be a substitute for legal or other professional advice and should not be relied upon as such. You can contact us about your specific situation, and ISM members can contact the ISM legal team. You can't see us, but you should be able to see the PowerPoint presentation displayed on your screen. You should also be able to hear us, but we can't hear you. If you experience any technical difficulties, such as sound or quality issues, please let us know in the question box, and we'll make attempts to resolve the issue. This webinar is being recorded and will be available to view on the ISM's website at ism.org/webinars.
So welcome to this webinar, Marketing Essentials for Musicians. And who are we? So I'm Jessica Salter, Communications Officer at the ISM, and I manage the ISM social media output, content, e-newsletter communications with ISM members, and a lot more.
I'm Kirsten Peter, and I'm the Marketing and Insights Officer at the ISM. That means I look after the day-to-day management of our website. I run marketing campaigns, including email marketing campaigns, and I help promote webinars and professional development, like the webinar you're watching now. I also look at our membership, who they are, what they do, so we can find out how to help them best.
So in 2019, so obviously we're going to talk first about obviously how to market yourself as a musician. And we are into 2019 and we have a range of communication channels available to us. And sometimes this can be quite overwhelming. But as a musician, it is important to promote yourself across your website and social media. So today we are going to talk about how you can market yourself as a musician, give you a little bit of an introduction to these channels and these different ways that you can market yourself as a musician. So we're going to explore website, mailing lists, social media, specifically Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Obviously, there are a lot more social media networks out there, but these are the three we've picked to discuss today, as well as local networks and word of mouth. Obviously, we can talk about streaming sites, things like YouTube and Spotify, but today we're just going to give you a brief introduction to this today. But if you are an ISM member and you do want to know anything about streaming and more obviously about the digital world, you can read our how-to guide, how to connect with a digital audience, which is available on the ISM website. But before all this, you need to decide what your personal brand is. So first off, you need to think of your tone of voice. So you need to be consistent in your tone of voice throughout all your communications. So you need to decide what your style is and stick to it. So if for example, you're a R&B artist, rap artist, you might want to use slang in your post. You might want to be quite informal in your posts and in the way you communicate with your audience, with whoever you're trying to get to go onto your website, buy your music or come to your gigs. So you need to stick to a tone of voice. So if you're going to use slang in your posts, stick to it. Don't start being polite and speaking the Queen's English suddenly and vice versa, because your followers and audience will get confused and distrust you. So you also need to know who your audience is, who you're trying, obviously, to become a fan, to become a customer. So knowing who they are, you'll be able to then gauge your tone of voice.
Okay, so a bit on visual identity. So if I say Big Yellow M or meerkats or golden puppies, you'll probably think automatically of the brands that they represent. And this principle can work on a smaller scale for you. Some people think branding sounds a bit pretentious, but really the word brand can be swapped for the word personality, the things that you want people to think of when they see your posters, your website, or your social media feeds. On a simple level, if someone sees a poster that you've made for your gig, EP, or teaching business around your hometown one month, make sure it has a similar style the next month or when you update it. This is so you create a memorable visual calling card for yourself. Think about always using a set of complementing colours and maybe only one or two fonts across your posters and website. So what should you choose? This can be one of the fun elements of marketing yourself. Think about anything that helps someone know at a glance what you're about. Obviously, a blues band is going to look different to rock. If you play music from a certain era, perhaps you want to use retro style fonts. If you play a lot of wedding gigs, perhaps you want to think about common wedding colour palettes. If you're running a teaching practice, think about elements that make you look professional. A smart, clear font, accurate, well-written copy, and simple, smart graphics are going to give the impression to potential clients that you take your work seriously and know what you're talking about. There are no real right answers here, but choose something that feels right for you, and you get a lot of feedback from friends and family to see if you've hit the right notes. So, photography. You can use a professional photographer, and it goes without saying that if you are going to use one, you should always pay other creative professionals, but perhaps you could use a friend or acquaintance. Maybe you could swap your skill sets, but obviously make sure both sides are happy with what you've agreed before you start. Maybe at an early stage, you're not going to need amazing shots, so just using a phone should be fine. Try and include at least a few shots of your face, whatever you're promoting, but there's nothing wrong with a few focusing on your instrument or pictures of you at work. So visual identity is really all about how you want people to perceive you in a concise visual shorthand. A consistent visual image makes you memorable and makes you seem professional. Okay, we're going to talk next about your website. So here, font, colours and photography, all the things we've said already apply to this. So again, we're going to say it a lot, but keep it consistent. There's quite a few different providers that you can potentially use to set up a simple website. Companies like Wix, WordPress and Squarespace are affordable options, but there are plenty more out there. You just need to Google affordable website providers and have a browse at the type of sites that they offer. Look around at smaller artists that you know and small businesses who have websites that you love. What do they use? When it comes to work like this, imitation really is often the sincerest form of flattery. Talking about navigation and usability, well, a lot of these website providers do often have guidelines that help you to make good decisions. But a good rule of thumb is to think back to when you first learned how to use PowerPoint if you have. Just because you can do something flashy and fun like funky graphics and lots of background images doesn't mean you necessarily should. There are a few fundamental rules that may help you. First, in this day and age, you've got to think about mobile. Avoid large chunks of text. People don't want to scroll all the way down and down and down a page to find out what they wanted when they first clicked on the page. Don't assume someone will have arrived on your site from the front page. Therefore, you need to make it easy for people to find what they want by offering clear links to related information. For example, if your gig list is on one page, including a big button pointing to the page where they can buy tickets. Sites are often beautiful looking and image-led these days, and that can be good, but take this advice from well-known website usability expert Steve Krug. His maxim is, don't make me think. If it's too complicated, people will just navigate away. So next, what to put on your site. It's like a shop window, but your main page could allow you to navigate to a bio, music samples, video, a gigs list, contact me page, or even a booking system for your music lessons. Again, with your voice, we're going to keep it consistent. Are you writing as you or in the third person? If you write Abigail as a graduate of the Royal Northern College of Music in one paragraph, don't then move to and I teach grades 1 to 8 and beyond. If you're using your site to promote yourself as a performer, you might want to include a downloadable press pack. This is just a page with some downloadable items on it. It might include a couple of photos and a short bio and then a longer written bio that you can point a journalist or blogger to if you're out and about for them to use easily and quickly. Finally, do try and keep your website up to date as much as possible. It's annoying for someone to see your name out and about, look you up, and then see that you still have concerts from 6 months ago listed. Measurement. So you can measure what people do on your website. And Google Analytics is a free tool from Google that tells you a bit about how people are using your site. It can be used in very complex ways, but you don't have to be using it in this way to get useful information from it. For example, finding out where people are reading your site from, if there's lots of readers and people accessing your site who live somewhere in Leeds, for example, maybe you could think about going and doing a gig there. Or more practically, maybe you just find out whether people are reaching the right pages. Are people going onto your music page and listening to the music? And if not, can you make it easier to access? Luckily, Google has lots of free resources to help you learn how to use Google's tools, and we'll talk a bit about where you can go later.
So, moving on to social media. Let's see if this is loading. There we go. So, it is important to have a presence on social media, as it is where discovery, engagement, and sharing occurs. However, it is important to link back to your owned channels, such as your website or your mailing list, as this is where your audience will get the most information from you. So on your social media, always have links back to your website, to your mailing list, encouraging people to, sign up to these. But focusing on social media itself, each social media platform is slightly different and people use them in different ways, and you need to be aware of this. But first, let's go through what you need on all social media. So you need to use the same name, photo, and handle across your social media channels, such as, here are some examples. So the artist Sigrid obviously has the same image across all her social media, her Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Then she has the handle @thisissigrid across all three. And then she's got her description as well. Same for Nick Mulvey. He has the same image, and he has Nick Mulvey Music on his Twitter and Facebook, and on Instagram it's just his name. So, it's rule of thumb, try to get the same name across all three. It's okay if it's slightly varies, not all perfect. But it's important on your bio boxes across all three channels, and in most social media there's always a small bio box. You need to keep it brief with a link to your website, ticket link for your gig or streaming site, or if you're, put your profession and your location in your bio. So if you're a piano teacher in Harrogate, put that in. If you're a freelance trumpeter looking for opportunities and collaboration in Edinburgh, put that in, because obviously that's the first thing people will look at when landing on your social media page. So now focusing on the separate platforms. So we're focusing on Twitter now. So Twitter is an important tool for musicians, as it is a social media channel where most people network and talk to each other on a professional basis. But you do have limited characters, so it is important to make them count. So as previously mentioned throughout, maintain your personal tone. Tweet often. So Twitter's algorithm does not penalize you for posting multiple posts, unlike other social media platforms. So sometimes the more posts, the better. Always try to tweet photos, videos, GIFs, a range of context. Tweet text-only tweets work too. Always try to keep a balance. Always tag people in your posts, including venues, as they might just retweet you. For this example here, it can be the Brighton. Also, use hashtags to expand your reach, but don't overdo it. So my advice is to try to keep it to a maximum of 3 hashtags in one post. You don't have to put a hashtag in every post, but if you really want to, don't go any more than 3, in my opinion. If you don't know, a hashtag is a link on social media which will categorize your post with other people using that hashtag. So for example, if you use the hashtag Game of Thrones, other people who use that tag are likely to be discussing the TV show. So it is useful for discovery. If you click on that hashtag, it will come up with different tweets from across Twitter across the world, and likely people are going to be discussing Game of Thrones, or if it's hashtag gig, people are going to be talking about gigs. So also there's popular hashtags such as hashtag Music Monday, Feel Good Friday, Monday Motivation, which you can use, and you never know who might see that tweet. So furthermore, it's important to network on Twitter. So follow fellow musicians and accounts that are relevant to your style and engage in conversation, but please always be nice. When you post links, remember to try to keep them short. For example, Bitly is a useful tool to both shorten links and also track your link. So on the Bitly website, you can see how many times your link has been clicked. By link, what I mean is obviously a link to, say, Eventbrite or like your gig list. If it's to your website, if it's www.jessicasalter.com, obviously you can just put that in your tweet, because obviously you want people to know it off by heart. But if it's a very long link, I'd say copy it into bit.ly, make it kind of short so your tweet is quite neat, and you can also track this, track who's clicked on that link. So by copying that, so if you type into bit.ly in the toolbar on Google, go to the web page, copy that link, you're long linking, it will create a shorter bit.ly link, and then you will be able to copy that and use that, and on the bit.ly page, you go back to that and it will tell you how many people have clicked on it. So you will know, like, obviously how many people then have gone on your website to a degree. Furthermore, I encourage you to retweet things your followers might find interesting and things you want your followers to be aware of. Don't forget to thank people for retweeting you or replying to your tweet. And don't worry if you do lose a follower or two, as this happens every day and it is the name of the game. And always remember, tweet others the way you want to be tweeted. So moving on to Facebook. So I assume that most people might have a Facebook account. It is important that you keep your personal account separate from your professional page. So create a page rather than obviously a personal account. For Facebook, you can use larger copy in your posts and also in your about section. So put your biography in the about section. It doesn't need to be formal. Social media platforms, first person and personal does work best. In the about section, there are also options to link to your website, your other social media channels, and your email if you want to. It is up to you how much contact information you want to put there. In terms of emails, you need to make sure you have one professional email address. So if you have 3 different emails, make sure you use the same one email when messaging professionally in order to avoid confusion at all costs. So unlike Twitter, the Facebook algorithm does not like multiple postings, so it's important that you keep your posts down to 1 a day, 2 if really necessary. All posts must include an image, video or GIF, not gift, as this will give greater reach rather than just text-only posts. People love seeing video, pictures, so give it to them. Also, Facebook favors video. So if you upload a video natively to the page, which means loading a video directly to the page rather than just linking a YouTube link, this will give it greater reach. So for example, if you have a video introducing your new EP or a promotional teaching video or just a short clip of one of your gigs, put it up. But remember to keep the videos relatively short. And these posts should do well, or they should get a good amount of reach because Facebook favors that. One great thing about Facebook is Facebook events. So create Facebook events for your gigs and invite your friends. Events are unique to Facebook and a great way for people to know exactly when and where your gigs are. So for example, this Sigrid gig here has all the necessary details of her location, and the day, all of that. And Facebook events also let you put the ticket link on the event. And sometimes you can even buy the tickets within Facebook, within the Facebook event. So this makes everything very easy for your followers. Also, utilize Facebook groups. So they are great for connecting with others who are similar interests to you or for finding clients. So for example, if you are a private music teacher and you want to get new students, it's worth searching for community Facebook groups in your area. So for example, this Kettering community board. So Facebook groups are great. And just for chatting with fellow musicians and networking in that sense. And also if you are feeling pretty confident with Facebook, Facebook has a host of analytics tools to help you understand your audience. So Facebook Analytics and Facebook Insights specifically is a great tool. So if you are feeling confident, you can use Facebook Insights to see the demographics of your followers, the reach of your posts, and the engagement on your posts. So you can see what is working well. So this is a very useful tool. And the final actual social media platform we're going to explore today is Instagram. So Instagram is designed for short attention spans and for the visual. So I like to think of Instagram as a more behind the scenes social media network. So it's, as the video or the image is the main thing, it is important to keep your copy short. So I like to think of Facebook as the more professional network, and Instagram as a more personal, behind-the-scenes network. For really great images, but you can also, put great press shots and very pretty images on there if you really want. Again, like Twitter, hashtags are very common on Instagram. So people use them for discovery. So use hashtags, so you never know, new followers can discover you through that. But also be sure to keep them relevant. Like and comment on other people's photos. It's the most natural way to gain followers and obviously to have a good rep with people. Instagram's great because you can post a mix of photos, videos, boomerangs. There's the Instagram stories, which obviously only lasts 24 hours. So sometimes that's really fun when if you're out and about, you're on the road, you're about to play a gig. It's keeping your followers engaged. So be experimental with the types of posts on this platform. And finally, you don't have to post the same thing on every platform. What you post on Instagram does not have to go on Facebook or Twitter, or whatever's on Twitter doesn't have to go on Instagram, and vice versa. Sometimes it's actually better to have some more personal images. For example, this one of Sigrid at Cambridge, she didn't post that on her Facebook page, she just posted that on her Instagram page. And finally, obviously you do not need to use all three platforms if you do not think it is relevant, but each one has separate features that you can use. So if you are a newbie to social media, especially social media as a tool for marketing yourself, I would suggest for you to start with one network, and once you are comfortable with that network, move on to the others and test and get more comfortable with each network.
Great. Okay, let's talk about mailing lists. So probably the best thing about trying to start a mailing list and design your own emails is that you've probably already seen a lot of email marketing and you already know what you open, what you don't open, what you find annoying, what you don't. So again, like with websites, there's a lot of established programs out there to help you set up a mailing list. There are places like MailChimp, TinyLetter, Drip or Benchmark, but there's a lot more, so do have a search. They allow you to store and contact a limited number of contacts, but it's usually plenty, particularly if you are just starting out. So, the elements of a good email. First, the subject. A great subject line is what gets someone to open your email. The good news is people have tried and tested lots of different subject lines, and there's advice out there, but there are some key devices that people use that you might have already seen in your inbox. Firstly, intrigue. It's not just about writing 10 great email marketing tips. You won't believe number 7. It could just be a question like, do you know what's happening at Comedia Brighton on Friday? You can utilize scarcity. So these are the emails that you get which just say something like 4 free tickets to Friday's gig that make people think about having to quickly react. And then finally, if you're not comfortable with that, just being informational can appeal. Just book tickets now, or teaching open for September, new pupils, anything like that. So a key thing to remember is that most people nowadays are checking their email on mobiles. You only have 35 characters that show up on a mobile screen typically, so do make sure you keep it snappy. So what else could you put actually in your emails? Obviously this depends on the work, but there are some key principles that will probably apply to everyone. The first is call to action. These are what they say on the tin. They make people take actions from your email. So if you're writing about your gig on Saturday in Cardiff, you want a clear signposted button or link on where to get tickets. So they don't just have to be about buying tickets. They could be actions like sign up to my mailing list or listen to my music. Anything that makes people go further and engage with your website or the work that you do more, basically. So content, it can be hard to think about what you might want to include in an email. You want to put your important information at the top. If you want people to come to your gig, this should be the first bit of information, along with a link. However, if you are a great writer and you enjoy writing this kind of email, why not show this off? You could review local bands, blog about things you've learned, books you've read, about music, or about recent exam passes. It's a real opportunity to show off what you know. But equally, don't worry if you're not really keen on writing lots. You can keep it simple, but you could include links to interesting articles that you've read from the music sector, or you could even put in a video of the week. There are a couple of emails that I can think of that I open just because I know that it will contain interesting links to things I know I will want to read. Another key element, and you've heard about this for anything you've ever written, but proofreading. If you can't get a friend to do it, the typical techniques include returning to it after a break, read it backwards, start with the last line and then read the second to last line, the third to last line. It helps your brain process it in a different way so you can spot mistakes. And printing it off, just seeing it in a different context, can be very helpful for spotting any errors. So, how do you build a mailing list? So the first thing is that if you're going to collect and hold people's personal data, you do need to know about GDPR, which is the data law that came in last year, which you probably heard a lot about in your inbox. If you're planning to use your information for marketing purposes in particular, it's very important that you're up to date with your GDPR knowledge. If you've got someone's name and their email address, you've got their personal data, so you need to keep it safe. Some very simple tips. Don't leave data lying around. You do occasionally hear stories about people passing around mailing lists at a gig, and it's just a bit of a no-no, I'm afraid. You need to give people the option to opt out of your emails, and you can't assume if they give you your email for one reason that they're automatically fine to be on your marketing email list or your general email list. You do need to collect other, what we call consents. But luckily, ISM offers lots of advice, both to our members, but we also have some free advice out there. So we will put up the addresses at the end of the presentation, and they are good places to find out all about the basics of GDPR as well. Okay, so if you need to collect names and emails, technology is your friend. Most websites allow you to collect sign-ups through secure web forms. There are also simple apps that you can use. You can get them on your phone that will allow you to collect sign-ups securely. You can still potentially collect emails on paper, but you need to be sure that they're secure and they're stored securely. You also need to make sure people can't see each other's email that easily. So you could do something where you collect paper slips that have individual email addresses on them and then store them securely, for example. But if you do have any questions about GDPR, please do get in contact if you're a member, and please do watch the webinar and read the advice page. As far as building a mailing list, people are more likely to sign up if they know what they're going to get from your mailing list. So if you write on your webpage, sign up to my mailing list, and then a box, you might get a bit of interest. But if you say, sign up for news, gigs, new music, and my top tips on guitar technique, it might get you a few more. It also helps you to be transparent about what you're going to put in your emails, and that is another key part of GDPR. Particularly at the beginning of building your list, you'll want people to forward it onto their friends or share any information about it. So do remember to ask them directly in the email text. That's what you want them to do. One final point, don't be a pest. The Information Commissioner, who regulates marketing email and other communications, gets more complaints about people over-emailing than anything else. So, word of mouth should not be underestimated. Even a company like the ISM gets a lot of our new members and people interested in us through reputation and other people recommending us. We had a big event in October called the Empowered Musician, and at it the artist SK Shlomo spoke, and he said, if you want to build a digital audience but don't know how to, just ask. If you want to get your stuff shared, just ask. Message people of like posts, put the time in to ask people to back you up and get your message out. And this applies both online and offline. You can tap into local networks, bloggers, venues, turn up to watch other people play, engage with articles that local bloggers post. And remember, it doesn't always have to be music-related networking, as Jess mentioned when she talked about Facebook. Particularly if you are teaching, how about parent groups, parent-teacher associations, small business meetups, or even retired networks who there might be people there who have been waiting their whole life to get a chance to learn to play the piano. You could be the person to teach them. So yeah, you could, for example, go and speak at a community meeting about something that you've done with your music, or perhaps you could even offer something like a half-price introductory lesson to some people at the meeting to get a few people started. Finally, and we've said it before, say thank you. It's what your mum told you, and you need to follow up with people that you speak to, both in email and on Twitter. A final tip, think about getting business cards that match your branding, as discussed earlier. It will be a good way to remind people after you've spoken to you.
And here are a list of some useful resources which further build up upon what we've just spoke about today. So there is the ISM series of how-to guides. So as I mentioned earlier, there is the how to connect with your digital audience, which explores streaming, and it explores a little bit of social media. There's how to write a DIY marketing release plan. So obviously if you want to release your own EP, but obviously you're not signed or you're doing it all by yourself, that is a great plan from Wickseed Works in there. So just check out the Advice Center, how to quick advice. So if you are an ISM member, you can download those guides for free. If you're not an ISM member, I think you can only get the quick advice.
Yes. We have a free webinar from a little while ago that also goes a bit further into some marketing techniques, which you can find any of our old webinars in our gallery online. So that's ism.org/videos or ism.org/webinars. Google Digital Garage, I mentioned briefly when I was talking about analytics. It really is a very helpful program. Google know their products better than anyone else, and there is a great program for marketing a small business which is available for absolutely free, which is what the Digital Garage is. It takes you much further than even we've been today. It covers things like how to put up Google advertising, how to attract people in your local area with using Google. So it is worth a look if it's their skills that you think they're worth developing.
And finally, cdbaby.com and Unsigned Guide have a whole host of blogs, articles from external people, from, say, the music industry and musicians themselves, who give their advice about, obviously, marketing yourself, promoting yourself. Some can be more specific in terms of just marketing your gig, so definitely check those out. And please remember to follow us. So obviously we are promoting ourselves as well. So please follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and check out our website. So obviously we've got the handle ISM Music. And if you'd like to join us.
Yes, we've mentioned a few benefits throughout the presentation, but one of the major things for marketing is that we are able to give quite detailed GDPR advice. As well as a lot of other benefits, including our public liability insurances, access to our legal team to help with contracts, and much more. So if you're not a member and you're thinking about it, we'd love to hear from you.
And now time for questions. So let me just see, there's the clicker. So if you have any questions, please type them now. So any questions at all from anyone? If you just type them in the box and press send, they should hopefully start coming through. If there's anything you'd like us to go over again, or anything in specific, just give us a message.
We've got a few coming through.
Oh, they're coming through now.
So, hi, what about how to promote a music video, says Tom. Well, there was the comments that you made about how good Facebook is about promoting video content.
So what I'd say about promoting a music video is, for example, if you've got your full video and say you've got it on YouTube, because obviously that's what hosts the full video, and I think you can get money from YouTube to a certain degree. To promote your music video, I'd say if you have the tools, cut it into the highlights. So make a short clip of that video. So maybe where, say, your music video with you've got the chorus or the big, it's a really great video. cut that video and promote it on your social media, and then linking through to the full video or linking through to the song on Spotify or the song on SoundCloud or whatever you want to next do. So with a music video, you can, if you look at our how to marketing DIY release plan, you can also like make that relevant for the music video. One thing obviously to remember, Facebook and Instagram do like video, they favor video, so always upload that onto there. Again, it's like with a music video, like promoting a gig, it's getting that information out. If you're sending out an email, you could say new video out now in the subject line, and then obviously you've got the link to the video, which will then link to YouTube or whatever platform you want to promote your video on. So hopefully that's a little bit useful for you.
Someone's asked, have we had any tips about Facebook and Instagram ads? They are something that we use at the ISM. So one thing I would say about learning, Facebook and Instagram are integrated together.
Yeah.
So if you're setting up a Facebook ad, you're setting up an Instagram ad. So it is only one thing to learn to some extent.
There's two questions on that. So someone's asked about Facebook and Instagram ads, and then the same person who asked about video, obviously you can promote it as a Facebook ad as well. So a video ad, again, it's better to have a short clip. The one thing about Facebook and Instagram ads, they don't like text in, say, the video or in the image, but obviously you're promoting music, so that's great. But again, people's attention spans are so short, and I think even Facebook only likes you to have a limited amount of video in your ads. So have it at a maximum of 30 seconds or at the very maximum, and with that, you upload. If you go on Facebook advertising, it does explain it quite easily, like step by step, and you can target people. So if you're wanting to say you're a rock band and you want to target people who are into, I don't know, like AC/DC, if you sound like them, then you can target fans of AC/DC.
Yeah, and as Jess said, I do think that Facebook is built quite nicely to take you through the steps of setting up an ad. So if you want to go through it, it really does take you through. Now you need to write the text you want on your advert. Now you need to upload the photos you want on your advert. You don't necessarily have to do something really complicated straight away. I mean, I think most of the stuff we do is fairly simple. It's just an image with some text around it. So there's nothing too much to think about. Maybe when you start out, you want to try and get people onto your website, so you might just want to maximize the clicks on your advert. That just means people will be more likely to engage with the advert, so click on it. But yeah, there are lots of guides out there, I would say that. Google's particularly good at training people how to use its products, but Facebook has its own help section, which will talk you through elements of Facebook advertising as well. So there is a lot that you can read and learn separately before you get started.
Yeah. There's a question, so any issue with using a stage name only? I'd say that's absolutely fine. The only thing with just using a stage name only is then you would have to have that name everywhere, not your obviously real name. So if your name is, I don't know,
Elton John.
Elton John, yeah, obviously that Elton John is not his real name. Or for example, someone like Pink. So if you think of the artist Pink, Pink will be everywhere. No one really knows what her real name is, so unless you obviously are best friends with her. So you just use that, use that on all your social media, on your website, everywhere. Obviously, if you say your professional email address is not pink@gmail.com, obviously that is fine, because it's a little bit, email is it's not really like a public thing, because it's just contact. So yeah, stage name is absolutely fine. What else do we have? So
someone said, Alicia said that she's a classical pianist and she does a lot of different things for her career, including concerts, events and weddings, as well as teaching. Is it advisable to put all my skills on one website or create separate websites? I'd say it's still fine to put
Yeah.
everything on one site, because I mean, as I'm sure everyone listening knows, most musicians are doing 101 different things. You've got lots of different projects on the go. You can still have unifying themes around everything you do, as far as the way you want to present yourself. So I would make sure that you have very clear sections on your website for wedding work, and just on your headers, just make sure it's clear what people are navigating to. But yeah, I wouldn't say mix people up, because you never know. You might get a teaching person who comes to you for teaching who then is also getting married and wants to know about your wedding.
I'd say obviously on your website, if you, on the bio, you obviously it lists everything you do, because it's obviously about who you are as well. But as Kirsten said, obviously you can have different tabs in different sections of your website, which might be piano teaching, professional opera singer, whatever, whatever you are. So you can obviously make as many tabs as you want, because you are, musicians are diverse. So, and it's just being careful, but not giving,
And I think building that consistency throughout the whole website, although the information about the different parts of your career might be different, as long as each page doesn't look radically different. So you've got one with lots of different fonts and lots of flashing images, and then the next one is one image and a different font. It's about creating consistency across the whole website, not necessarily like consistency across your career, because you are the one kind of product, if you like, although I hasten to call someone a product, but it's just that you do lots of things, and that's actually to your benefit.
So there's another question, which is, would you recommend turning a private Instagram account to your professional one if you already have your followers? And I'd say yes, that's fine. If obviously it's what you feel comfortable with. So if your private account, you do post things, pictures with your friends when you're out to lunch, or your pictures of your family. If you're comfortable with posting that publicly and having fans or whoever see that, that's absolutely fine. Like, a lot of people, as I say, use Instagram as a more personable account, really. So that's absolutely fine, and it's just it's just maybe changing the copy slightly and putting in a few links. So I'd say that's absolutely fine.
Someone has said, would you say these kind of marketing devices should be used for classical musicians too? Is the same sort of marketing expected of classical musicians or not? I'd say in this day and age, it's expected of all musicians, really. Again, it totally depends on what type of work you're doing, but we discussed a few examples within the presentation. There's ways to market yourself for wedding work, concert work. If nothing else, even if you have a manager and they're providing sort of gig booking for you, and they're kind of doing the admin for you, you want people to be going, who's Joe Bloggs? Oh, I heard Joe Bloggs is on the radio. I want to Google them. I want to find something once I've Googled them, and I want to know, particularly with classical musicians, often if you've had traditional training, often you have a very impressive roster of qualifications. It's a great place to list these, your achievements, any awards you've won. So I'd say yes, there's definitely a place for websites, and even better if you can get going on Instagram, Twitter. It's all about making classical music more accessible as well.
It's making, and it's also giving yourself, kind of showcasing your personality and showcasing, obviously, like, classical musicians, it is going a bit more that way with certain classical musicians who, they like, say, you look at Nicola Benedetti's social media, look at Sheikh's, and say Jess Gillum. Obviously, they're quite young, but and they're obviously individual musicians. So if, say, you're a classical musician and you're actually just applying to be in an orchestra or something, it's still important to show, obviously, your personality, and the just obviously any platform to show how good you are is always encouraged. Let's have a look. So we've got. So one person says that they've started to go through their band's social media and have started to clear things up towards a consistent tone of voice. So that's great to hear. So this was, so Nate, so Maria says her native language is different than English, and would you recommend to have a separate Instagram account also in the native language for the audience from my country? It might be easier for you to reach audience in a native country, but it seems too complicated to manage. Is there any other option? So what I'd say to this is it will depend. If your current Instagram account is primarily from your native home country and you really feel like that should stay the same and you want to create an English version, fine. But my one piece of advice would be to keep one account, because as you say, it might be a bit too complicated to manage and people wouldn't know which one's the real one, and you might still end up getting, say, like English audiences following your native language account and then vice versa. What you can do in your post is just, obviously, if you've got if you're like, great day, great rehearsal today, you put that in English, and then obviously just underneath put it in a different language. So I'm a big fan of, for example, Shakira. She posts in English and Spanish all the time, and yes, it means her copy is quite long, but it means it's accessible to her fans. So yeah.
And I think it's another thing about you, isn't it? Something that will make you stand out.
Yeah.
Who knows, if someone sees you posting both English and another language, they might be looking for someone, if you're based over here, to play back in wherever you're from. So it might be something that makes them book you or makes them interested in you. So I think certainly don't hide it. I think it's another, I'm going to use an awful pun, another string to your bow.
So there's just another two questions, one about smaller budgets and one about YouTube advertising. One thing with YouTube advertising, it's very expensive. Only big, like, cinema brands, people who've got new films out really use YouTube advertising. So I would advise to stay away from that, whereas, for example, Facebook advertising is a lot more accessible because you can choose the budget. So if you say, so this question where it says, do you think small budgets have good effect? I assume you're talking about Facebook. You can obviously choose the budget, but then you have to be quite specific in your targeting and how long you want to run an ad for. And also where, if you're promoting a gig in your area, obviously you just want to, if you're promoting a gig in Nottingham, you just want people in Nottingham to see that advertisement.
It's all about targeting, really, isn't it? I mean, you don't want to waste your money if you've got a small budget. So if you know that your gig is in a certain area, or your teaching practice only covers a certain area, do you only want to cover those people? Do you only want to advertise? Because they give you limitations on the people who will see your posts. So is it over 18s in Nottingham, if that's where you're based? Is it that you're appealing to a younger audience, so you only want to appeal to 18 to 30s, or or a completely broad range? The more specific you can be, basically, the more your budget will hopefully be used in a useful way.
Yeah. So there's another question about, obviously, if an artist hasn't done much in the past, if you haven't won awards, or you haven't released this EP, you can just talk about yourself, what you're interested in. A bio doesn't need to be really, really long, or a press release doesn't need to be really, really long. Usually, a couple hundred words, if that. One side of A4, I write press releases, obviously for the ISM, and you want them to be short and engaging and to the point. You don't want to ramble on. So if you haven't actually done much yet, you can just say, obviously, what you play, what music you're into, who your influences are, or people you're listening to at the moment. I really like this album by this person. Or even things like your hobbies, or where you get your inspiration from for writing your music. So just about yourself, really.
There is a really good example. I think it's in the marketing plan that we've mentioned, which is part of the how-to guides that are on the website for our members, that actually has an example bio in it. And I think, one of the things that Jess just said is that the example talks about her influences more than she talks about anything that she's particularly done. She says, sounds a bit like, with influences from...
And a good thing about that is, if you're sending that out to someone, or if you're putting that on your Facebook or your website, and people are discovering you, or it's even if you've got a Spotify page and people have bios on there, it means people will discover you and they know, oh, well, this person kind of sounds like Beyonce, or Pink, so they're quite a poppy person, or this person sounds like Fleet Foxes, so they're like a folk artist. So it means people will actually be like, oh, actually, I might be into this person's music, and getting a vibe for that. What else? So marketing yourself to performance venues, to get gigs. I'd say sending emails. So again, say you're in say you're in Nottingham. I used to live in Nottingham, that's why it's coming up. You can message, if you just send out, obviously, emails to the promoters, to the venue managers, and say, I'd love to put on a gig. And then you have to say, obviously, you kind of will have to say, I have this amount of fans on Facebook, or this amount of Twitter followers, or I released this. And it's just getting them to listen to your music. And again, sending out a short bio about yourself. Obviously, it goes without saying, follow them on Twitter, follow them on Instagram, and like things and message back, and tag them in things. That's my advice.
Someone's asked, how would you approach social media to differ if you're trying to market a music service, a music hub, versus the advice you've given for individual musicians? And I'd say that I think another element that perhaps we haven't discussed as much today, although it has come up, for something like a company, or obviously music service is sort of an organisation, if you like. There is elements of going out there and making sort of alliances with other organisations, talking to theatres in your local area, talking to other musical and arts-based organisations across your across the area that you cover. If it's about getting parents and children actually engaged with the hub and what it does, I'd say that there's quite a lot that can be done as far as what we were talking about, as far as like word of mouth and community groups. It's the same sort of element. But you can use a lot of the digital tools as well. And it's worth saying you can become an ISM corporate member as a music hub.
We can promote you.
So we can help promote you.
But social media for a music hub as well is obviously, it's kind of, if you show off your team, show off your teachers, show off the work you're doing. So if, you obviously you'd have to get permission from schools or from parents if you wanted to show a teacher, actually like a music hub teacher actually teaching you, and you can take short videos of that, or you could take pictures, but obviously please get approval and all of that. But just show off your team, like, oh, the music hub today, we've had an inquiry about this. So yeah, the day-to-day runnings of a music hub, or write blogs and promote your blogs. What else? As a teacher of kids. So this question: a teacher of kids from 4 years old, how do I manage videos of children? Again, so as obviously I just said, I think this is a very tricky situation, because obviously child protection, and we are very much advocates of that. Yeah. You would need to get permission. So schools, when they want to take pictures of their students, obviously in uniform, promoting the school, they have to get written consent from the parents. So you would have to either create a contract, or obviously discuss with the parent, am I allowed to do this? And again, you can speak to if you're an ISM member, you can speak to our legal team. We have a lot of template contracts and child protection information. So that would have to, that you have to do that. Yeah,
our handbook includes a good section on safeguarding and child protection. But I mean, there is no reason why you couldn't do it, like Jess said, but as long as you do have the requisite permissions and proof that you have those permissions as well. But yeah, I mean, it's always through the parent, guardian, caregiver. I think we've been asked most.
I think that's it, really. I think we got through that.
If you do think of anything in the next couple of days, please do email membership@ism.org and we'll try and tackle a couple more questions if we can. If there's something that you think we missed out and you'd like to hear more about in future in a different webinar or a publication or a web page, please do let us know as well. We're aware we gave a broad overlook of marketing and communication, so if there's something that you would like to particularly hear more about, please do email and we'll see about if there's any trends of what people are interested in.
And just obviously give us any feedback, positive, negative. It will be very useful for us. But we hope you've enjoyed this webinar. I'm Jessica.
I'm Kirsten.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.